that they use. They are in 8,000 school districts, 80,000 schools, and in all 50 states in terms of their products throughout schools. In Pennsylvania, we did talk with our rep, and he gave us a list of the different schools in the area, in the Quad County area, Montgomery, Bucks, Chester, and Delaware County. So these are many of the schools in our immediate surrounding area that use different combinations of the frontline products. As you can see, many are very local to Bucks County. So I'm going to have Dr. Tolks come back up and talk a little bit about the big picture of the life cycle.
And you can see there are red areas and green areas. What we're focusing on tonight are the red areas because those are not the areas that we have currently. I can tell you we do have some functionality though that we don't utilize with Frontline, and one would be management absences, because we have our third-party contract with Kelly Services. Frontline, as I told you, we do optimize for our leaves. We also have a section with professional development, and one of the things we really want to push forward is to make sure that we can do some more integration with some of our current programs like Safe Schools. We're going to be looking to see if we can get some integration with that. But what we're really asking for is to add that recruit to hire process, which is so important as we employ new people for our positions. Also, as Mr. Gabriel had spoken, I think, with regard to employment evaluation management system is also something that is part of this. What this does is makes it like a one-stop shop for all the transactional issues, all the transactional needs for our employees. Thank you. You're going to see some statistics here. This is from your previous HR personnel. When they first got it, like I told you, it started in July. You'll notice that they onboarded 54 new staff members through the solution at that time. Those 54 employees completed 497 onboarding forms, which is an average of 9.2 forms per employee. Previous time it took to complete new hire was 3 hours, and now it's 20 minutes, which is roughly a 75% faster rate. The old way, it would have taken the team 162 hours to onboard them. Now it takes roughly 40.5 hours to do the same work, which is a time savings of 121.5 hours. This is, like I said, previous HR data. In the future, though, I am hopeful to establish like a current state in understanding how the process flows and mapping out those process flows of our utilizing our current staff. And then once we have those process maps laid out, it will be so much easier for us to do measurements of in-process measures so that we can then continue to do improvements to our system and also to how we hire and service our employees.
Excuse me for interrupting, but are people, I'm getting emails of frozen screens, people are not able to hear this meeting. Are things going out to the community or not? Okay, I just got this again, so.
Are we at least recording it?
I don't think this is working, to be frank with you, at least what I'm getting on here, but.
And are we at least recording it?
Yeah, it's,
Cutting out?
yeah.
I don't know. People are blowing up my phone. Oh no, I will read you what this person said. I don't know them. It's not positive.
Now? Okay. Thank you. Just checking, I'm getting these here.
It's time to go to the website.
Okay.
Well, that's two different things. Which is better, the website or the TV channels? Okay.
Okay. I'm going to move forward. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, I just was checking. That's because
All right. Again, like I told you, we've had Frontline since July 1st. Some of the forms that we have been able to optimize are the benefits package like FMLA and FRACA, other general HR forms. The total forms completed, including onboarding, have been, these are the big numbers, 872 forms by 238 different employees. So that took our average down from over 9 pages per person to 3.6. Finally, these are kind of, you see that we have future process solutions and current process challenges. I'm going to start with our challenges first because I'd like to end on a positive note. But our current challenges is we're very paper heavy, which again leads to lost time, accuracy, and efficiency with our employees. It's not a very continual experience for those people who are trying to apply for CSD, and it's not an effective communication tool. It does not, the functionality doesn't help us to identify or narrow down the best candidates for the positions. So as we move forward, what we would like, because this does have tremendous functionality for us in the future, is that we would have clearly defined recruit to hire process that we as a new team could outline and then monitor. Better access to platforms for advertising, for recruiting for the district. More efficiency for again, selecting those top candidates. There's actually some components and testing that we can actually funnel candidates so that we don't get people in front of employment managers unless they're highly qualified for those positions. This also would offer much better communication for those employees, say they don't get the job. One of the things our system doesn't do right now is when we do offer the job to somebody, those who did apply for the job do not get a communication whether they received a job. And part of that is because you can have 40 to 80 people apply for a position, and the only way for me to really contact them now is by phone, and I just don't have the manpower to do that. But the functionality of Frontline would make it so that we could deploy an email and still encourage these people to continue to apply at CSD, but this may not have been the proper position for them at that time. So communication is key. And when the processes are simple, when they're intuitive, and they're very welcoming to people, it really enhances our brand as CSD. So I certainly hope you will consider this for our HR processes, because we would be very excited about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Collins.
Dr. Ben, I've gotten 5 texts already that we may be sending the signal out, but it doesn't appear it's
I know
landing.
on Verizon they can't get it, so I don't know what the big problem is here, but
Dr. Tolks.
I'm referring them to the internet.
yeah, I did the
Are we pausing the meeting or?
Verizon.
I do have a question for you, which is,
Yes, sir.
I know you've only been here a short time,
Yes.
but do you have any sense of how often I'm interested in the piece where you're talking about zero notification capability currently to
Correct.
keep people up to speed, which can lead to a loss of quality candidates. Have you seen that happen in your time here already?
Actually, when I first got here, that was one of the first complaints that I received from employees was, and actually I think from a board member as well, was that there was no notification when someone was selected for the position.
I
they were
recall
kind-
this.
What's that?
I said I recall this. Yeah, keep
Yeah,
going.
so they're kind of hanging out there thinking, well, you don't care about me. You didn't even reach out back to me. But the problem is that the only way to communicate is to dig back into those applications and then call every single person back.
What would you estimate is the cost to, from start to finish, to recruit and hire a new teacher, let's say, to the district?
Well, it depends on the forum that you use, the platform that you use, because If we can narrow it down to a day or two, it's the cost of my employees within my department for a
Right,
day.
but like now, without this, like,
Without-
yeah, like how much is it costing us now? The process that we have in place, just a guess.
Just a guess.
Yeah.
Well, if you're talking about five
Yeah,
5 to 10 days of multiple salaries.
Right.
It's because you also have to think of the hiring authority. You have to think of everybody who's processing, the 3 people and plus myself.
Right.
If they're doing interviews with people, all those people that are sitting on the panel. So if you think about that in terms of costs, you think about that with their
Right.
salaries.
I mean, what I'm getting at is that the cost overage over what was budgeted is $7,091.89.
We could
So
make that
if
up.
we could make that up in a single efficient
Probably in
hire,
a single hire, yes.
thank you.
That is logical. Yes, thank you. Yes, sir.
yes. I've got a few questions. Number one, the school districts that are listed here, is that their customer base in Pennsylvania or just local?
I asked just for this side of the state.
They're just local?
Yeah, just locals, the
Okay,
southeast region.
Do they have a representative living in the area?
Yes, he actually lives.
Yeah, and believe me, I'm not defending Skyward. They have not delivered on their promises since we bought it.
Right.
So, but one of the biggest things that we've had is anytime someone needs to come in, we need to pay their transportation and everything
No,
else.
the rep that we deal with is local.
That's been an issue.
Yeah.
As far as the student information system goes, with parents being able to monitor their children's progress online, will we have fully vertical access kindergarten up to 12th grade? Or-
That's a different product, Mr.
Oh,
Miller.
okay.
This is just employee, frontline for an employee onboarding and offboarding process, nothing with students.
Okay.
Yeah.
Separate totally from Skyward and that
All right,
information.
so then
system.
what are we going to do about Scott? No.
Well, I will, to that point, Mr. Miller, I will say that currently the 2 products that we're using are from a different vendor. And that vendor's products doesn't work well with Skyward because it's not part of their SIS.
This would
This
be a
does
back-
integrate with Skyward.
This is a back office.
Right. So this will integrate with
Which
Skyward
Skyward
more
is not
effectively
doing it
with
anyway, so-
our current systems than the current one does.
Okay.
So that'll help.
Brancato?
Question here in regards, we were currently using Talent Ed and we're moving away from
We were
that?
using 2 products that were Power School products, yes. Well, we still are this year. Right. Right. The hope is to make the purchase tonight and then start to transition. over
And
the
how
course of
would
the
new
spring.
candidates figure out where to make the application now?
Well, right now, they have to go through Talent Ed, and then we have to pick it up from there. What would happen is everything would be deployed from that one platform. So everything, once the employee applied into that platform, everything then goes from there. It doesn't come in to play until after I've made the offer to hire. Then we can put them into Frontline right now. And then we do the paperwork for them.
So it's not necessarily notifying a candidate that they have applied and they are being considered
That's
or
Talent
interviews
Ed.
are scheduled.
That's Talent Ed right now. So I'm working with 2 different platforms right now. They do not communicate with each other. So that manual process is what I'm saying causes inefficiencies, lags, and obviously could have issues with accuracy. Ms. Brancato?
Can I use the cost of this new program?
So we'll jump to the last slide here. No, that's all right. So basically, as you can see here, so there would be an initial upfront cost this year with a prorated cost and implementation cost, which is around $18,000 to get this up and running. But then starting in 21-22, the right-hand side is the Frontline product, which is what we're hoping to get. Over the course of 3 years, it's just over $7,000 more than what we're currently doing. And Mr. Dixon, you brought that up. So if we were to continue with our current system, which is, the split products basically with the extra manpower and the disconnect between the systems, over the 3 years, this is an approximate cost, about $75,900, assuming that that grows at the same rate each year as it has been. We do know that the frontline agreement would total around $82,991 and change. So it's about a $7,000 more investment money-wise than we would currently pay if we kept the system separate. However, I think what Dr. Tolks was pointing out, and then I was going to go over from the professional learning standpoint, we're really gaining efficiencies in terms of manpower, people, and being more deliberate and more focused in the decisions that we're making around what we pay for professional development and things of that nature. We actually met today, Mrs. Robald and the special ed department, and talked about how we were going to integrate some other ways that special ed tracks professional development and kind of put it all into one bucket, so that we're saving processes, paper, and manpower that we're currently using just spreadsheets for.
So I'm just trying to, what is the initial payment that we would make?
This year,
Right.
it's roughly 6,000 and change. It's in the attached doc. It's in the attached PDF, but it was about 6,000 and change prorated cost. It's on the it's in the board docs. So if you go into board docs and you click, it has the cover sheet, and it's got the this year cost. Okay, it's about, just to give you a ballpark, Ms. Brancato, it's about 11,000 and change for the setup for this year, and then another 6 prorated costs. So it's roughly 18 or 19,000 for this year, and then this picks up in the summer. I didn't want to put that in the chart because we couldn't really compare that cost, the upfront cost, to the current cost.
Mr. Dixon, did you have a question?
I think my question was mostly answered, which is why it was about why the agenda item calls for 101,393, but this shows only a difference. It shows a total cost of 80. What was it? 86.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I don't know if everyone heard, but I was asking Dr. Tolks about the cost of, because in this presentation, one of the biggest thing I noted going by was that, because I know we've heard this in this room about, and I'm trying to remember which, we were hiring somebody or something, and it came up, the fact that people do not get notified once they are applying to Centennial. There's no notifications going to them while they're waiting to hear how their application is proceeding through the process of whatever, the hiring process. So that there's no system in place to do that. This program creates that system. And the cost of hiring an employee, you were saying, Dr. Tolks, like in the current system, giving us a ballpark, like how much does it cost to onboard a single about $10,000. How much savings would you anticipate from having this system in place?
I said it's at least 10,000. I think we
Per
could
employee
bring
you hire.
Right.
So every time you hire an employee with this system versus the current system, you'd be saving roughly $10,000 in
Easy.
people.
Easy.
Okay, thank you.
Is that shown in one of the graphs here, the savings?
No. If you'd like us to calculate that, though, we can actually do
On that one where you had all the prices, I mean, that would really make a huge difference if you're showing something, but then the price of it and with the cost next to it, that your savings would really sell the
we
product.
can follow up with the board with an email on that, calculate that actual.
The issue is also you're losing, I was asking Dr. Tolks, since you've been here, have we been in a situation where, like, let's say we had an open position and we had a preferred candidate, and because that preferred candidate was not contacted in a timely fashion, or, whatever, the current system didn't allow for them to know what their status was, they wound up leaking off and taking another job.
Well, that is the issue, because I can't even track that. So I don't know how many people we're actually losing because of that, because we never contact them again. So if I have a cycle where we're encouraging them to keep coming back, and you've got to create it so that you appreciate them applying in the first place, and you want to welcome them to the CSD family from the start. And then you want to be able to communicate regularly with them so they feel important, and we want to keep them coming. Right now, I have no way to track that, and I have no way to deploy it with the current system that I have. Okay.
So in a similar manner, I just want to give you a quick overview of some of the metrics that we've pulled off the current products from the professional learning management side. This is a chart that shows over the past 3 years how many sessions or how many hours we've allotted to the different goals that we had set as a district. Again, these were goals that we inherited when we got here. So I guess a few years back, the district decided that communications, curriculum and achievement, and diverse populations were important goals at the time. And you can see we've tracked, or the system has tracked, how many hours have been allotted to those specific topics. What this tells us, from our perspective now looking at this, is that we need to do a better job using data like this and metrics to help drive our goals as a district, to help drive the professional learning that we need to do. We need a consistent multi-year plan to address the different needs we have as a district. And we've talked about that in length, in cabinet, about really getting a clear mission and vision together and really setting a path forward in the areas that the data and the feedback we're getting is showing that we need to go. And then we will be able to connect that to the professional development. Similarly, we are able to break down the amount of hours that are allotted to different types or purposes of professional development, from regular in-service days to Act 48 to two aspects that we don't have anymore, the in lieu of day, as well as the 9 hours, which don't exist anymore in the current systems that we have, and then also tracking support staff hours. And this was really the focus of today's session that we met with special ed, was we're sort of tracking that in a couple different places. So our hope is moving forward to really bring support staff under the same umbrella as professional staff, so that everyone has equal opportunity to professional development, and that we're tracking and making sure that everyone's got those equitable opportunities to complete the professional development, and that we have data to show that we're actually doing that right now. And that's why you'll see the differences in the numbers, but again, really, some was tracked in this system, others were tracked in a spreadsheet. So everyone's getting their 20 hours, all the support staff. It's just a matter of where we're keeping the data. Our goal is to house it all in one spot, so we have accurate reports on a more regular basis of where our employees are in fulfilling their professional development obligations, if that makes sense. And then current process challenges. Again, we have a very manual, labor-intensive process that's a little bit all over the place between departments. And we're using a lot of different Google Sheets and spreadsheets to sort of balance out how we're tracking. We're not capable of managing all staff currently in one single place. And so what we would be able to bring together with this product would be to bring both PD and evaluations under a single platform. Again, really connecting the PD to the outcomes of our evaluation and observation process. As you can see, we don't currently have, we have some data dashboards, but not full data dashboards. So being able to look at that data to make decisions moving forward, and really just back to the same kind of echo that Dr. Tolks had shared, single platform, ease of employee management around professional development, observation evaluation processes, and then aligning our district goals to those outcomes in a clearer and more effective manner would be the hope.
Will this also forward the information to PDE, or will it just be kept locally?
It will still have the same processes that we would then forward to PDE for Act 48 hours and those sorts of things.
Okay,
It'll work with local and IU-based PD. We'll have to be a little bit more manual on our end if we do professional development from things like Patan and some other outside sources. But we'll still have to manage that part manually, but it'll still, once it's in there and the Act 48 hours get logged, they'll all get pushed to the state.
So at this point, it will not be able to tap into Patan and getting that information.
It's not there yet. Not automatically, no.
What about absences? Will that also be tracked, or will that be tracked there?
Right now we have a contract with Kelly Services. It does have that capability, but we have not turned that on.
PDE is promising they're going to go to a real-time database. They've been promising it for 4 years, but
we'll hold our breath.
They may actually get it done at some point. Will we be able to do that? I mean, it would save us so much money in preparing files. So, are they talking about being able to do that? Or I guess I'm asking the same question is, Mr. Godek's in a different way. Is there some interchangeability of data?
We have not heard currently about anything in relation to their interface with PDE, but that's definitely something we can ask. So we already kind of went through the cost slide. So do you have any other further comments, questions?
I'd just like to say this seems like a no-brainer to me. I remember talking with Mrs. Fredrickson about the lack of electronic forms available to the staff and to the new hires, and how cost inefficient it was. So I'm happy to see this initiative being followed through on, and I look forward to hearing more information, and hopefully we get this processed for everybody and get this on board, because it seems like a no-brainer to me.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So I believe now we're going to take a 5-minute recess because some community members are not able to hear what we're saying. So we're going to try to fix the technical difficulty here, and we're going to be back in 5 minutes. I'm sorry for the delay.
Have you heard from any of the other guys? As far as that I spoke to him first. I haven't been able to reach Keith. The community. That's a fair answer. I spoke to him. He's,
Oh. That's up to you. Yeah, absolutely.
No guarantees, but we're going to try. Verizon is definitely lagging, so I'm watching it back there, but that's out of our control. That's a Verizon issue. Comcast is fine. You can see it on the stream and everything fine. We're trying to see if we can get you the sound in here, because this is... and it's coming... Yes. And the stream on the website is fine.
Hello, hello? Hey, I can already hear audio.
We have hot mics right now. Okay, but the screens aren't down, so why is that? So we can hear the mics, but the screens aren't showing. You hear me? Testing. 1, 2. Testing. Mr. Miller, can I ask you to test your microphone, please? Can I ask you to test your microphone, please? Just test your microphone.
Testing.
Yes, please.
Testing, 1, 2, 3,
Okay.
testing.
Thank you. I know. Thank you. Okay. We're good to go with that.
I'm going to test Zoom.
The host would like you to unmute your microphone. You can press star 6 to unmute. You are unmuted.
Test. 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 1, 2. Test.
And it's not working?
I don't know anything about this setup. I was just the Zoom guy.
Oh. Perhaps we should go back to the Zoom situation.
Test. Test. It is.
I'm sorry for that break. We are reconvening now. However, if you did miss anything, these meetings are recorded, so you will be able to see them. Since some people were not able to hear what was being said, I did want to repeat something that was pretty important, and I know some community members were extremely upset. I wanted to address the letter that was sent out last Friday regarding the attack on our Capitol. Please know it was not meant to come across as derogatory towards law enforcement in any way. The wording should have been chosen a bit better. It should have been chosen better, and I apologize for that. Okay, so now we are going to move on to COVID update. Dr. Bedden, Mrs. Presler, and Dr. Best.
Good evening. We're going to try to move quickly, so it'll be a little bit faster pace to catch up and be respectful of people's time. As indicated, anytime there's a meeting and there's changes to what we're requested to do by the state, we often want to update the board on those changes before we communicate to the public on how operations are going to change. The information to be covered is listed there. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read all those. So I'll pause for a moment. People take a quick glance. The current situation that was on a January 11th, 2021, 12th, we did update that. Today is a current screenshot of the current status in Bucks County in CSD. We are sitting, as you can see, the incidence rate is still fairly high, the PCR rate, substantial community transmission, and then the normal information we recover. There are new requirements and expectations that were sent out by the Pennsylvania Department of Ed and the Pennsylvania Department of Health just last week. There are some key terms that they updated inside of their guidance. Specifically, they made some tweaks to the blended learning model, which is blended/hybrid, to make sure people are on the same page. And then they have recommendations related to blended learning model for just elementary schools. I do want to make it clear that the key to both of those, to make sure people know that it is still requiring and expecting the implementation of the 6-foot physical distancing between students. The document says social distancing in their language. Health officials are nationally and statewide and regionally are asking us to consider the terminology physical distancing from the standpoint that in this current pandemic situation, we really have to figure out how to have social interaction in a safe manner and just focus on physical distancing. Again, those are just terminologies. We received a letter from the Acting Secretary of Education on January 7th, which is the date this new information came. It is also public on the PDE website for anyone in the community to see. The key information is that they talked about starting the second semester and recommending that schools and communities with substantial transmission consider returning elementary school students to in-person instruction. They also talked about high school and middle school students staying fully remote, provided that we are still following all applicable orders and safety protocols. The second bullet, the highlighted point, is that we should be focusing on resuming in-person instruction for our targeted student populations. I will say that the more important thing that I'd like to celebrate for our staff and our district is nothing they have said we weren't already doing. We actually were doing what they just recommended already. We are already serving our targeted populations. We are already implementing a blended hybrid learning model for our students. The only difference in what they're saying is, again, elementary students full-time, but they put the caveat about 6 feet. We can't do 6 feet with everybody in. So the model we're doing is still meeting the standard of having in-person instruction and maintaining the 6 feet physical distancing. And our special ed kids have really not missed a beat. And we're serving ESL 504 kids in person. I won't repeat this. This is a reminder that part of that requirement for being in compliance is what we signed off on an attestation protocol that the board had to approve, and the president signed on behalf of the board and my signature saying that we would adhere to the requirements associated with being in person, which was the face coverings and the school closing rules that you will see later that I won't go into detail over. This was the previous model. That's just there for people to see a comparison. I'm not going to go over that, but just so people can understand the difference in what changed in one place. The new recommendations are determining instructional models for the second semester is about what happens when the incidence rate and level of community transmission and the PCR positivity rate. The biggest thing you will notice is the focus on blended instruction and blended instruction for just elementary school, and then your other choice is full remote. That is the big changes on the far right-hand column that we would tell anyone to focus in on. And again, very similar to the standards before, the main change is the right column for people to pay attention to. And I apologize if I'm going too fast, pause me, but I'm trying to get through this because of the time that we've lost to be respectful of people's time. This part I will share a little bit, but then I will ask our nurse coordinator, Ms. Pressler, to come up to the mic and join me in this part. I will tell you that this part is focusing on what happens when there's identification of a case of COVID-19. The rules still apply. It's interesting, they say we should follow the recommendations. You should, but it's a recommendation. That's the thing that superintendents have talked about, like you say we should, but it's supposed to only be a recommendation. So they kind of conflict with each other. So the recommendations are about school, based on school size, small, you've seen this before. Medium size, which is what all of our elementary and middle schools fall within. So I would say to anyone in the community, this will be posted for them to see, would focus on this chart for elementary and middle schools with regards to what actions we are supposed to take based on case identification inside of our schools. And then our high school would fall up under, and that's a typo, should be large, recommendations for large, which is greater than 900 students. The area concerns that we shared previously, and then we'll talk a little bit with Ms. Pressler about it. We are gravely concerned that the challenge that the new model presents is you could actually have to shut down a classroom or a school with short notice based on a number of cases that are triggered or hit. And that's the one side that we are working very hard to try to stay in front of. Obviously, as Nurse Pressler shared with me, we have COVID fatigue. People are just getting tired of COVID, so they're getting lax, that she's always concerned about. And then the third one, I'll let her jump in here and talk about the 3 C's, which is a key to us trying to keep from having to trigger a school or classroom closure in that process as we try to stay ahead of it with the work that she has to do and Mr. Warden has to do.
Thank you, Dr. Bedden. So as you stated, these 3 C's are very important in mitigation measures and keeping our kids in the building, which is what we want. That's our goal, to have our kids in school. So it starts out with our case investigation. We are notified by the Department of Health daily of any positive cases and any students who are quarantined or staff. The Department of Health is supposed to complete the contact tracing, but at school, we do that here for our students and notify back to them. Right away, when we talk about cleaning and disinfecting, it happens right away. If there's a positive staff member, I would reach out to Mr. Whartonby or the building principal. He gets the maintenance staff in there. That room is cleaned, bioblasted, all that is taken care of. So these are 3 really important pieces in order to keep our classrooms and schools open that we are following. So this is a new chart, a new dashboard, I'll call it, that we have discussed using. And this is really for families, and this is also for staff. So we can break it down by building and how many positive cases are in that building at that time. So right now, William Tennant is not 11 plus COVID positive cases in person. We just wanted you to see the color difference. The next slide will show you actually, if the board approves, what this would look like, and it would be live as of tomorrow. So as you can see, our codes, our keys on the top explain how many cases. We are starting at 0. And again, this is in-person cases. I want to make sure people understand that. And it's also cases as reported by the Department of Health to us. And basically, these are our guidelines. So a family member might say, let's say Davis Elementary. Okay, Davis is in the green. That's great. Now they might see yellow. And I update these with the help of Mr. Ross daily. Then they might see, oh, it's getting to yellow. So that's going to mean they need to start thinking about a change in plan. We're going to be in contact with families if that would happen, but we felt that this was a good idea that people could see things quickly.
And to our point, and this is a point when we get to the end of this, we wanted to make sure you're okay with this, but we believe changing to this model is another method of communicating to our parents. So, because as we get closer in that middle number, to try to do everything we can to give people a heads up that if something is going to happen. So we believe that we needed a change to break it down by school level, and then also be able to see the red, yellow, green coding that we're in danger of hitting that. Again, when they hit, there's a strategy with regards to if we hit that yellow or mustard level, warning level, that the effort with the case investigation and the cleaning, we actually have a really good handle on it. As you know, the Bucks County Health Department works really hard. They really are trying to stay on top of the contact tracing, but as you see those numbers go up, it made it challenging for them to keep up with it. So I would make a public plea that one of the things they just shared with us, and Nurse Pressler, is having people get back to them and respond to them as they're trying to do the contact tracing. If they can't do and say to us that we're good to go with the contact tracing, we can't stay ahead of this, because once we do the 3 C's, she's able to reset the number in the 14-day count. Does that make sense to everybody? That's key to us, how we can stay in front of not having to deal with a potential classroom or school closure, which would then trigger someone having to be home. And we have to follow that model because of the attestation agreement that we talked about. So this would be posted starting tomorrow. Obviously, we're back already, but again, we did not want to change the system without sharing it here with you all first. But they literally, behind the scenes, have still been using this model to guide the decision-making, how she advises and her team advises the leadership team on where we are and what we need to do to try to stay ahead of it. The other thing that we worked on, thank you, was what types of things operationally and staffing, to give some metrics, because you've always heard that term, that could create a problem for us to function and operate in a school. So we actually I asked Dr. Best to work with the principals, the other people to work with the departments, to tell me what it is that if you lost this many staff, that you'd be crippled in being able to deliver your service. Does that make sense? So, but we wanted to be transparent. What would trigger that? So, Dr. Best?
So as Dr. Beden mentioned, the rationale is, we need to know at what point or what threshold can we not safely operate a school, meaning keeping 6 feet of distance while providing instruction for the students. So in the charts you'll see that follow, implementation of each plan is color-coded. So different staffing thresholds that you see are green, those are things that we feel we can operate under. When we get into yellow, similar to the graphic you just saw previously, that's where we're in the warning zone. And when we get to a red zone, that means we're gonna close a school potentially. So William Tennant High School is the first example that you'll see, and it's a simple if-then chart. We have thresholds of percentage of teachers out on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, what you'll see is how many teachers will be required to cover those absences. So in the first row, if William Tennant High School has 7 teachers out, that means it will require 42 different teachers to do classroom coverages to cover all of their instructional periods. And the numbers go on beyond that. In a single given day, things like this are doable. But if you think about a situation where those 7 teachers who are out are not going to be out for one day, if they've been told they need to quarantine for a period of 2 weeks or isolate for a period of 2 weeks, that's depending on when they get the notification. that's 2 weeks that we won't have those teachers, and those coverages will be required every day. And the numbers get larger as more and more teachers are out.
Dr. Best, I have
Yes.
a question about that chart.
Sure.
And I guess it would be the same for the next chart, which is that, the internal coverage, 42 teachers, the internal coverage, 78 teachers. Would it be fair to say that really represents like teacher periods? Because I assume like if a given teacher's out on a given day, you're not actually getting 42 subs to cover.
No,
You
we're
have
not.
7
Those
teachers.
are internal coverages we're planning for. As everybody's aware, we had a national teacher shortage leading into the pandemic, and it's only been exacerbated by the pandemic.
Right.
So daily sub coverage is not what it once was. So
Right.
one of the assumptions we made in this process is that we would have minimal to no subs reporting to the buildings on those days. So those are our internal faculty members.
So for each teacher, you got to cover 6 periods when they're out.
Depending on the level, because the
Right.
schedules are different, but yeah, at the high school level, that's accurate.
So it's teacher periods.
Yeah. And so when you look at this applies for both middle schools. You'll see the thresholds are different because the size of the faculty is different. So at the high school, you have 130 and change professional staff, where in the middle schools, you have approximately 50. And they very quickly get into situations where they're combining classes in large group areas, where it becomes much more difficult to maintain 6 feet of distance, and much less productive instructionally when we're simply housing students to do asynchronous work in the auditorium or in the cafeteria. And you can see elementary as well, thresholds slightly different due to the size of the faculty, but they very quickly are canceling interventions and combining classes. Our tech department, because they can work remotely, it's not as damaging to have a few people out. But if we got to a situation where pretty much our building techs and central office technology people were out, we would go remote because we would not have any support for the network. Transportation, we can do up to 9 bus drivers out. Beyond that, we can't transport the kids. Custodial staff, we could go up to about 50% of our staff and still reallocate people and feel like we can get the cleaning done, but beyond that, it wouldn't be a possibility. Nursing staff, we can have up to 6 out. Once we go beyond that threshold, we couldn't effectively and safely operate our nursing suites. And then with food services, they can go up to about 35% of their staff out with reallocation before we can effectively feed the children. Each day, we have a daily standing meeting where we just check in with the buildings and the departments to make sure that they are staffed and able to open the following day. I'm happy to report that we were very concerned about that coming back from break, and it's been much better than we anticipated. And I think that's because of all the caution and care that people are taking. And hopefully we don't have to get to those thresholds, but we need to know operationally what those numbers are. Any questions? Yep.
In regards to substitutes, do we have substitutes that's in the buildings on a permanent basis?
We do have some building substitutes. It's been very difficult to find them. Not as many as we would like, and that's not for lack of trying or recruitment by our HR department. We've gone after them in very creative ways. I don't know that they're out there right now.
But we are more almost assured on a daily basis that somebody out at every school, correct?
No. We have the capability for that. We have the budget for that. But finding those people is difficult. And we've had building subs who have had to quarantine as well.
Okay.
The good news is we had an outstanding day, and I want to publicly acknowledge that to all of our staff. When you get your nurse coordinators send you a good news note about the number of people who were here, present, minimal absences or concerns with health issues today. It was probably our best day that we've had so far, that she was so happy and giddy that not only did she send an email, she made a point to share it again with me when she came into my office, which, again, I celebrate our staff coming back and working really hard with us. Our safety measures continue. The line is with Ms. Pressler, and our nurses continue to do an outstanding job advising myself. The team will tell you I do very little when it comes to the health situation without asking what she has advised or consulting with her, and also Ms. Bolden. Our staff wellness checks are still being done daily, electronically. All staff do a wellness check each morning electronically, either they're picked on their computer or their cell phone, responding to their condition, and our nurses and the principals see that, which also helps us also try to get ahead of if someone's going to be out and try to deal with those coverages if they're not feeling well, and then the nurses are able to call and coordinate with that employee to advise them on next steps, whether it be to stay at home still, whether it be we really need you to go get tested right now so we can get an answer and start the clock ticking to get you back in as soon as possible, or to say, no, you're okay to still come to work when people are concerned if that's an issue and they still want to come and work. HR is also brought in. Based on legal guidance, we review those people who could still do their function virtually and those who cannot. So we do try to make sure that if their job can be done virtually, that we try to use that resource. Again, within legal guidance, there are some tricky things that we have to maintain that would be problematic if we don't remain consistent in application of that. We did successfully, in a compliment to our IT department, Mr. Wardenby, who was put on short notice when I was touring the buildings and saw our Raptor system could be upgraded to be a part of our wellness check, as well as our contact tracing capability. So IT and his team quickly worked to get those upgrades, those orders and equipment. Every building, 6 schools in this building have the Raptor system as you check in to our schools. This is an example. It decreased the contact opportunities for our staff with visitors, other than them having to just give them their badge when it prints out. It also decreased the contact and interaction between staff who are leaving to go to another building. So for instance, when I was at Willowdale the other day, I scanned my ID into the system and just hit the button, whether I was coming for a meeting or whether I'm just visiting, to see how things are going. When I leave, I scan my ID back out and it checks me out. Why is that important? If there is a outbreak in a building, we now can run a report that she can get to narrow down the contact tracing to see who was in the building at that time besides just the people we know, like what other visitors. And of course, the system continues to do its normal safety checks with regards to checking for anyone who has any unlawful issues that the system scans for with their driver's license ID. And again, this will be posted. At the bottom is a little video for the sake of time. We're not going to do that, but I think I got the point across. And we said this because we want people to know how hard we're working to make sure we're running safe schools and trying to do the best we can. But at the end of the day, I would be remiss, because she would give me the funny look if I didn't say this. The COVID-5. It's all about people. If we don't do our part, none of this works. It doesn't matter.
Do we have the ability to start the testing process, before a student or a teacher leaves the building?
When you say testing, let me be clear, and then I don't.
For COVID.
No, we don't. We are still in the process of we work directly with. Let me back up. That changed. We originally were going to be a district of choice in the front end of having the capability for our secondary students. The model changed. Now that, and it's a good model. And if you tell me if you can disagree publicly, but I think the way the county is doing it and working with us, you can go to one of the ambulance stations and get tested. I did it when it first opened, so I could tell employees I did it and I experienced it. I went there, they tested me, and they come back out. If it's positive, if it's negative, you're good to go. If it's positive, then they'll do the more aggressive PCR test. So they do the rapid one first, and then if it's positive, they would do the PCR to get the more accurate one to confirm that, is it called a false negative, I guess, or false positive, whatever it's called, to make sure it wasn't a positive that was not accurate. They opened 2 more stations, I believe, that are functioning now, 3 more. So now we have 4. All the employee has to do, and they were all sent this, is show their staff ID. And obviously what happens is if something happens at school or we get a hit in the morning with an employee not feeling well, that's part of that conversation, or the nurses will tell them to report to one of those locations to get tested. And again, they come right out and talk directly to the employee. I want to be sure that everyone understands that testing and those things are also health medical records, so we have to be cautious, and that's why we've closed the gap on who gets that information. The HR and the nurse, and the next person that may know if there's something with employee modifications, they may bring it to me, but I don't even know typically, unless there's a need to know. We try to protect, and I think maybe their direct supervisor because they have to be out. So we try to keep a span of control that controls people's privacy on a need-to-know basis. But that's how the testing's done now. I would just say that we're 1B, in case you're wondering about vaccination situation. We did, at one point, propose to Dr. Damsker and superintendents that we believe our nurses could handle it if they brought it to him, because he even said we have a pretty good cadre of nurses in our county, in our schools. The latest update is that they may identify select hospitals that try to expedite the process of vaccination. Our nurses are Group 1A, like other healthcare providers. Educators were moved up to 1B status, the very next group of people who would get it. Again, but we're waiting, trying to get it there. And I think some of it's logistics of trying to do that process. Anything else, Ms. Pressler? So part of this plan is we have no choice in, because the attestation agreement, the main part is how we're communicating. We're changing a dashboard. If there's any concerns with us flipping to that different model, we're asking you to let us know. And also if you have any other questions about where we are right now in the process, so that we've answered your questions in case you get calls from constituents. You got a question for Mr.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, notwithstanding the attestation protocols, do we still have to update our report to PDE?
So as my coach would say to me, I'm so glad you asked. No. And they put that in that fax, so we were so glad
Okay.
that we don't keep doing that.
Anybody have any further questions?
Now, Ms. Croston, if they don't, I want to be clear. We're pulling the trigger on the new dashboard tomorrow and starting in communication with families to make them aware of the new system.
Well, we're just people.
Would anybody like to make a roll call, or are we okay with it? Just for sakes, can we do a roll call on this roll call?
Board, is that what you're asking?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mr. Burdnick,
Yes.
Mrs. Brancato,
Yes.
Mr. Dixon,
Yes.
Mrs. Eilenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Goddixson,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Still here.
That's a yes. Mrs. Crossan,
Yes.
8-0.
Thank you. Dr.
Okay,
Madden?
thank you. There are really two things to address, and one is for our school board members and others to the community, like Mrs. Crossan shared. Last week we sent out the letter regarding incidents at the U.S. Capitol. We also had the opportunity to share our district and be featured on 6 ABC News. And I want to assure our parents, as you saw on that broadcast, that two of our principals spoke, that we assure you that your students that they're in are safe in our schools and a safe and healthy learning environment. that our students are free to ask questions and share their thoughts in a safe space in all our schools. We know students have been inquiring about things that have happened. Schools were provided resources, and the resources that you saw in the letter, they are reputable organizations that you can click on them and see the information and learn about those organizations. Many in the community did respond to me directly about the letter, expressing both concern and support. These responses were welcomed, which highlighted the different thoughts, opinions, and feelings, and they're always welcome, and I want to say that to the community. I welcome constructive feedback, and that contributes to my opportunities to reflect as a leader. So I want to be clear and let everyone know and clarify unequivocally that I always have and will continue to support our law enforcement officials who serve and protect us honorably. As a citizen and as a former soldier who served to defend our Constitution, it was tough to watch what took place at the U.S. Capitol, a worldwide symbol of democracy. I also want to express my sadness and pain at the loss of life, including that of Officer Brian Sicknick, a 12-year veteran of the force who died in line of duty serving and protecting, as well as Officer Howard Libengood, who protected members of Congress for almost 16 years. I have family members and friends who are currently serving in law enforcement, and we've talked about this a lot. Like the officers here who serve and protect us in Warminster, Southampton, and Ivyland, I know how our policemen and women dedicate their lives to upholding the law and providing safety and protection to all of us, often at great risk and sacrifice to themselves and their families. Rest assured, I appreciate and value our law enforcement and the wonderful working relationship and partnership we have with them. I understand that has always been the case in Centennial School District, and as I had the opportunity to discuss this with Chief Donnelly of Warminster Police Department and Chief McPherson of Upper Southampton Police Department when I spoke with them this weekend, reaffirming our commitment and our partnership, which they also reaffirmed. But I do want to say again my sincere apologies for any offense that the wording in the letter created. That was not the intent. We will always continue to support, our law enforcement officials, and again, that was not the intent. Please accept my apologies. And I am absolutely a person who looks, learns, and moves forward by growing and reflecting. The other item in the area is we want to take this opportunity to recognize all 8 of you, as this is School Director Recognition Month. We will be doing this meeting and have something for you at our next meeting. On behalf of the administration, our staff, our faculty, the community who appreciate your work, we would like to share with you that whereas the role of locally elected school officials has served the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the local communities in meeting the needs of public education since the passage of the Free School Act in 1834, and whereas the local boards have discharged their duties to the public education in the manner which has placed public education in the forefront of our educational systems, and whereas locally elected officials such as yourself have distinguished yourselves in your communities in this non-paid volunteer public service commitment, because we all know you make a lot of money doing this, and whereas the contribution of you all as men and women should be recognized and appreciated by those who benefit from the workings of our public school system. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of School Directors of the Pennsylvania School Boards Association hereby proclaims the month of January as School Director Recognition Month in its Commonwealth. And further, let it be resolved that this proclamation be communicated to all districts, school officials, and local communities in a planned program which brings visibility and awareness of the role of locally elected school officials to the citizenry of the Commonwealth. This was, again, from the Pennsylvania School Board Association, which was unanimously approved on July 18th, 1985, reaffirmed Thursday, December 3rd, 2020. And again, we join the Pennsylvania School Board Associations as your local team, and thank you for your service and the work you do in this unpaid and volunteer position. Thank you.
on, can we go to community comments?
Let's give it a shot.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, it is. I'm so sorry. We're going to do the diversity committee update.
On June 23rd, the Centennial School Board, as you know, passed a resolution resolving to unequivocally stand firm in their collective responsibility to foster an equitable and inclusive environment for every student. And I'm shortening this because of time. In support of this goal, the Centennial School Board committed to developing a district-wide equity team with the representation from each building, administration, and the board of school directors. For internal and external constituents, you can visit our webpage and learn a little bit more about what that means. And we also want to say thank you to the 86 members within our district who participate as part of that process. I also want the board to know that while CSD is a work in progress, we continue to work with the Pennsylvania School Board Association Equity Services team, led by Dr. Heather Bennett, and the PSBA, which is your association of public school leaders. That partnership will help identify and address issues of equity for the benefit of all students. It will include work on our equity policy guide, which we are currently developing, equity action plan, equity lens approach, and equity systems continuum. As I prepare to introduce Ms. Shawana Coles, who will be leading this effort in her role as Director of Equity and Inclusion and Education, I want you to please note the following. PSBA is one of only 3 school boards association that we know of in the nation that has developed an equity policy framework. The others are Oregon and Maryland. Other school board associations have been reaching out to them to learn and get that information. Also, a point of pride is that Centennial will again be a leader, is one of the first districts in the Commonwealth to use PSBA's new equity continuum of assessment. This would help us evaluate current policies and practices through an equity lens. PSBA will provide ongoing training and support through this policy development workshop for our school board equity team, our equity team members who are our staff and students, and the school board members will be receiving additional information in your weekly report on that agreement and partnership that we will be bringing forward. At this time, Ms. Coles.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to stand to first thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to try to speed through. For those who know me, you know that I always speak from my heart, and today will be no different. I would like to honor the past work that the equity team had done, because when we began this new iteration, I was informed by Dr. Mike Masco, former superintendent, as well as other teachers and staff, that there had been a diversity team in Centennial for many years. We learned from the University of Pennsylvania that Centennial was one of the first districts in Bucks County to become members of the Equity Consortium. I'm sharing this because I would like for the community to know that Centennial has been working on diversity, equity, and inclusion for many years. In 2016, previous Superintendent David Ball met with a few administrators and teachers to discuss returning to the consortium at the University of Pennsylvania and developing an equity team. The most simplistic definition of equity is simply to give our students what they need to be successful while being fair and impartial. As noted on our DEI page, which thanks to Mr. Ross has been up and running since November, equity in Pennsylvania is defined as every student having access to the educational resources and rigor they need at the right moment in their education across race, gender, ethnicity, language, disability, sexual orientation, family background, and or family income. Additionally, the Pennsylvania Department of Education has noted that in order for students to do their best, they must feel safe at school. A healthy and safe environment can help students thrive. Every student, regardless of, again, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, or expression, should be provided the opportunity to learn free from discrimination, fear, or harassment. This has been the blueprint for our equity team. So I would like to recognize and thank the school board of directors for allowing the equity team to dream big and to flourish. We started this team with 7 members. And as Dr. Bedden said, we are up to 86 members across the district, and that is incredible. Our district-wide team names are listed on the website. Please take a look. At our middle schools and at our high school, we have student voice teams and principal advisory groups who meet with building admin to guide and inform on how to break barriers to ensure we are growing empathetic citizens. We are currently working to develop a parent advisory board to ensure we are hearing from all parents and engaging families from all of the diverse backgrounds we have here in Centennial. These teams are led by our equity liaisons, who if not for this school board of directors, we wouldn't have. Early on, we recognized one person could not do this job in isolation. We needed a team. So this school board was gracious to appoint teacher leader positions. In our secondary schools, we have 2 per building. In our elementary schools, we have 1 per building. And I need to let you know that we are one of the first to do this. We are often asked, how has this been accomplished? Each of our liaisons are working with their building-based teams and administrators on building goals, ranging from food insecurity and student voice to proposing new culturally relevant courses, diversifying artwork in our buildings, book clubs and book studies. We are working tirelessly to ensure we are a culturally sensitive district. We are looking at which barriers exist, and we're working to hear and capture all voices. We are working with the Pennsylvania School Board Association to develop the equity policy that Dr. Bennett just mentioned, so that decisions will be made through an equity lens. In 2019, Centennial, again, here the theme was the first district to conduct an equity audit through the University of Pennsylvania. The priorities for improvement are listed on our DEI page. Equity is also included in our comprehensive plan. And I should note, once again, we were one of the first to include equity as a goal. Centennial has been commended for being a culturally responsible school district. And in fact, it was noted that the anti-racism resolutions that were passed unanimously across the state, including in Centennial, were because culturally responsive districts such as ours were at the forefront. These districts who inspire other entities to move, to act, and to make decisions. To the board members who have served on our equity team last year, under the leadership of Mr. Dixon, I want to thank you. Mr. Miller, you said when I first came to Centennial to dream big, and I've tried to do that. And because of your efforts, the equity team has been able to speak nationally. And we always have a seat at the table because of you. Mr. Panofsky is not here, but he is the champion for student voice. Anything that involves our students, he has made himself available. And to Ms. Brancato, I don't know if you remember this, but you told me one time after I presented that you were proud of me. You told me that I should let you know if I needed anything. And this spring, you and I have many conversations as we as a district work to fight food insecurity for our families as a result of the pandemic. You met with our equity team, and in true fashion, your passion shined through. In November, you joined our courageous conversations led by the Peace Center and passionately thanked our children and parents for speaking their truth. You helped us as we tried to create a brave space for student and family voice. Again, I thank you all. I'm looking forward to our continued partnership under the direction of School Board President Ms. Crossan, and we graciously welcome Mrs. Eilenberg. In closing, Centennial is a statewide leader in equity, showcased by PSBA, aligned to PDE's equity work through intermediate units. We have been tapped to present at local colleges. Centennial is becoming a model that other districts are hoping to emulate. The equity work that we have done has resulted in students feeling a sense of belonging, being made to feel physically, psychologically, emotionally safe, regardless of race, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, etc., by engaging in brave conversations. Our students feel supported because our teachers have developed strong, authentic relationships with them. Our students are developing lifelong skills such as kindness, empathy, and compassion for others and their lived experiences. They are embracing difference and looking at those things that truly connect us as human beings. The work we are doing as an equity team is exhibiting the fundamental goal of education, which is to create a self-directed lifelong learners to function in society. Since this school year began, we had 3 workshops led by our longtime partner, the Peace Center, on Courageous Conversations. I was invited by 4th grade students at Davis to discuss what is equity and how does it impact our lives. I facilitated conversations at Tenet on equity. Today, students from Tenet were invited as the only school district in Bucks County to a financial literacy workshop. Dr. Henrich and I are working with Temple University and Westchester University to encourage students to go into the field of education, which, as was mentioned earlier, is low, and even more so for students of color. We work with Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority to replenish our prom closet with the hopes of having a prom and making sure that our families who are in need have the resources available. Ms. Bolden and her team are working to address trauma and the social emotional needs caused by the pandemic and civil unrest. Our CSD farmers market at Klinger and our CSD food pantry at McDonald continue to provide food and toiletries to family. Special thanks to Willowdale for being designated as a no place for hate school. And because of them, we're working to add that designation to other schools. Every morning in our elementary schools, students recite the diversity pledge that was created many years ago. And at our middle schools, they have created a pledge that they say as needed. At our high school, Tenet has been on the AP Honor Roll for the past 2 years. The AP Honor Roll is a distinction, as you know, based on expanding the program to include more diverse student groups. And lastly, later this month, our student voice teams, who presented to this board last year, students from Log, Klinger, and Tenet will once again participate in the Student Leadership Conference at the University of Pennsylvania. I know I can't tell it all. I tried to tell you a lot, but I hope this gives you a better insight to the incredible work our district is doing, and most importantly, leading. I humbly submit that it's because of the extraordinary work across this district and the leadership across this district that we have not found ourselves responding or recovering from a crisis which has occurred in other districts. We are a family. It is what I hear constantly. Centennial has the family feel. I hear that constantly. Well, CSD family, it is up to us to lead with integrity, to agree to disagree politely and respectfully, because our children are watching and listening. They are counting on us. So I thank you for your time, I thank you for your support, and I thank you for listening. Thank you. Mr. Miller, I tried to go fast.
Well, I was asking the board president for permission, but I'm happy to deal direct because you are always direct. Shawana, you have been tremendous on this program, and I may have started the ball rolling, but you knocked it up the hill.
Thank you.
And Dr. Ben, you're joining us here. It only makes us better. We are the only school district in the state of Pennsylvania. There are 30 members on the PSBA task force, and we are 3 of them, the 3 of us. PSBA chose us to be the first district in the state or in the Commonwealth to pass the anti-racism resolution, and it was passed here unanimously. We have the largest task force assembled in the state. And the only thing that I'm concerned about right now, and I don't know how you're going to fix it, is that the annual equity symposium this year is on a weekday, not on a weekend. It is virtual. as many things are. And of course, we have school, so we can't necessarily abandon our other work. I think we have school that day. It's a Wednesday.
I think some of the sessions are in the evening now.
I don't think it is.
Oh.
You know what? I can actually, I don't have it in front of me. I got the registration in the mail. I didn't open it yet. But where I'm going with this is, it is free. We don't have to travel. And if we can find a way to host it in our building, or I have a place in mind, we gotta have our dinner.
Gotta have dinner.
And I will still cover it.
That was well said.
Thank you.
Very well said.
Ms. Coles, I just want to, I want to acknowledge how much effort you put into bringing that information to us tonight. And I recognize that that was well thought out and took a lot of energy. I appreciate your passion, and I feel we're lucky to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Okay, community comments?
Ms. Ward, can you hear us? Ms. Ward, can you hear us? Ms. Ward, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
You have 3 minutes. Just state your name and address.
My name's Rachel Griffin, 252 Kent Road in Warminster. And I am speaking on behalf of the letter that was sent out about the events at the Capitol building.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Ms. Ward, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm getting on the screen that you're asking me if you can hear me.
Ms. Ward, can you hear me? It's from the...
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Are we good?
You have 3 minutes. Just state your name and address.
Hello, it's Rachel Griffin, 252 Kent Road, Warminster. Hello.
Go ahead, try now.
Okay, I think sorry, hold on. I have to shut your meeting off. Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, sorry about that. The meeting was interfering with my Zoom.
Right.
This is about the letter that was sent out for the events at the Capitol building. I will start off with, I appreciate the fact that the president of the board and Dr. Bedden did throw out an apology today. However, I would like a authentic public apology via a letter to the community that they chose to divide in this circumstance. I felt that it was not only, the initial letter was not only inappropriate, but the response that I received back from the superintendent was unapologetic. He's clearly standing by his original letter, and his response was neither apologetic nor constructive. It literally name dropped his relationships with former police personnel and references his resume, which is unnecessary. His response indicates clearly that if he received more complaints other than mine, that he would then apologize. All of the ifs in parentheses in his letter says that loud and clear. His parentheses questioning if I am denouncing violence is not only appalling to me, but negates my initial response to his letter. I'm highly offended and disappointed in the lack of responsibility that he took. This behavior by the superintendent and the school board president will not be tolerated, in my opinion, by the taxpayers and the voters. There's no place for division and politics in the school district. And I sent an email out to all of the board in what I initially responded to and Dr. Bedden's initial response to me. And that is my comment for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For division and politics in the school district. And
That's her meeting. Kiri Sellers, can you hear me? Just have to unmute. They hung up. That's it.
Is there another way we can, is there another way we can do this, because this isn't like, it's not, this is not, if you're not a technical person, this is not a friendly act.
We could have them come in.
Excuse me?
We could have the community members come in.
We're all getting, you know what I'm saying, Patty? We're all getting text messages that people can't hear, that we're fading in and out, that there's gotta be a better way to do this.
Well, it was determined, as you may or may not know, that when Dina came out, that was the cable channel's issue. That was not.
I know, but it seems like issue after issue after issue, and enough is enough, we gotta come up with a better plan.
Madam President, if I might, just for a moment, I did see in the news media that one of our neighboring school districts, I believe it's Council Rock, is now letting public into their meetings in a restricted way. And I think after what went on tonight, with nobody's fault, but with all of the difficulties we've had here, there should be a way with the room that we have, with proper distancing, that at least 20 members, either through a sign-up or they would be admitted and whatever, should be able to come to our meetings, address us personally, and not have to put up with all of the difficulties that people did this evening. And I would apologize to them for nobody's fault, but apologize for all of the things that got in their way of participating or watching this, listening to this meeting. If they're able to come in person, and I see no reason why that can't happen, that we should be able to do that and support that and find a way to do that by our next meeting, and something that we could all agree on.
Right.
I was actually sitting here thinking something similar. Maybe we could have the overflow in Siska, so they could at least be in the system, and be, we could put a camera up in there.
And even if they wanted to come in one at a time and address their concerns or comments or.
Right.
I believe that's what Council Rock is doing, Madam President. They're letting in, if you want to address the board, you can come in and they have 10 or whatever number it is. Then if there's additional people, the other ones have to leave and then other people can come in. Much better than this way.
Well, the reason I thought of Siska is so if they wanted to watch the whole meeting, they could watch it in there and then come over when it's their turn to speak.
Could we make that work with our safety plan, Dr. Bedden?
As I shared with you when that question was brought up, that there's no reason that we couldn't other than to plan for it, and that was the issue with doing it tonight. We need to, all the things you're talking about is go through and develop a system to do that. And as I share with you, I am aware of some districts, to Mr. Martin's example, do that. Some are doing what we do. Some are still fully virtual. But if, as I said to you on the phone, if that's the board's desire, all we need to do is have a chance as a team to go through and plan the process out to allow that, which includes a system for coordinating, signing up, and scheduling to that process, so that we are making sure that we have equal opportunity. And so it's like sign up by this date, this time, so we can actually plan it out and make sure that we confirm, that here's the time that you should be here, here's a protocol and procedure, and those types of things. On the nurse's part, for example, working with her to understand what does she need from the person, to affirm with regards, because we do wellness checks. Everybody in here does a wellness check, except for you all because it's your meeting. So little things like that.
So does the rest, I want to see how the rest
Because,
of the board
yeah.
feels about this?
Because I need to make sure, just so you know, to the rest of the board, the administration and the nurse coordinators is also to make sure that we're creating a healthy and safe environment for you all. So we just need to develop a system, that's all.
Yes, Mr. Goddickson.
We had our executive meeting yesterday at MBIT, and we actually had a parent from Council Rock School District that addressed the board directly yesterday. So it is possible. The other thing that we've done at those board meetings is even when we walk in as board members, we take our temperature, we fill out the form, so there's a complete tracing mechanism in place, for us to attend the meeting. That is done even by the board.
Does anybody have any other thoughts on that?
Well, just with all due respect, MBIT is meeting in the cafeteria. So, and we were well under the minimum number or the maximum number of attendees.
And I think, again, what I would say, Madam President, is it's not that it can't be done. What we need to know is if you want to do it, then we need to plan out a safe process. I think Mr. Goldixon really laid out an example of that. Like, we want to, because again, and I'm not being disrespectful, but I have a responsibility that by oath for health and safety and welfare, that I have to build a system. Because when I look at the makeup of our board, we have people in here who are at the risk level also. So I just need to have time to build a system and then share that with you all, because I think if you want to do it, we need to develop it, communicate it to you all to make sure people are comfortable with it so everyone understands the protocol, and then we would communicate that to the public with the process. So, for example, he made a good point. Then, for example, which is why we put Raptor in all of our buildings for the contract tracing and things like that if something happened, to consult with our nurse to make sure the processes and procedures she wants. I watched one of my former deputies, who's a superintendent now, in their meeting, their students did came in person, but they also had protocol wiping everything down in between the speakers to make sure that they're not passing anything when someone else comes up to speak at the podium.
Okay, well could I get Ms. Roll? Right, Ms. Rollball, could I get a roll call on who is
The motion first before we roll call on something.
okay?
I'll move that we start coming up, designing a plan to allow the public into the meeting.
Second.
Okay. Are we ready for roll call on
Wait,
that?
yes. First of all, Mrs. Eilenberg had a question.
I just have one question. When we have a topic that creates a lot of interest from the public, how do we determine who's allowed in while maintaining those guidelines, or whatever guidelines we come up with, where we're within the safety plan? And how do we tell? I'm sorry.
I could suggest what's in the policy, which is we do have the right to set a time limit, which would therefore set a number of people limit, and open up the registration to speak, say 5 days before the meeting.
So I to answer your
May I finish?
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is, how do we can open a registration, fine. But my question is, say we have more than 25 people interested, say we have more folks, because you've seen this room packed. We've all seen this room packed. How do we tell folks they can't come when we don't have enough room for overflow? That's my only concern. Because I think that in a moment can seem, someone who may want to be here and we tell them they can't, I think that would create an issue. And I'm just curious to see, and not that happens a lot, but we need to be able to address that as well.
I mean, when you're done, when you ask your question and you're done, politely ask them to leave the building.
Right now, the plan is to develop a plan for the community to attend. We need to create that first.
And what I was going to say, Madam president is, chair is, one is I think you need to go through to see if you want it done, as you were going to do with the vote. I would also welcome the types of questions that was just asked. And to give her an example, in another district in Pennsylvania, we actually had a set time and a number of people, and then the board would have to vote to extend it. But we also had a sign-up period that we could see to make the president aware before we got here that we had, to her point, an issue. So that would be part of the structure that I would share with you all to try to get to an orderly fashion. Because at the same time, I'll give you an example. I would absolutely tell you that in my conversation, Chief Donnelly would probably say to me, you really would not want people sitting around your building unsupervised, for example. So a plan, like we have to factor in all of that, because now you're leaving your building wide open to anyone. And I can see him having that conversation with me. But we can develop a plan. I would welcome that, if you pass this motion to consider this, that we also encourage members to pose their questions so we can factor that into the plan. And then y'all can respond to it.
Ms. Robo, can we get a roll call on?
You have a question from Mr.
Oh,
Miller.
I'm so sorry. Mr. Miller?
Yeah, the more I think about it, well, the motion and seconder is a good idea. We already have a policy that invites the community to meetings, and we're under an impossibility of performance. So I don't think we have to do anything to find a way, motion-wise or resolution-wise, to find a way to do what Dr. Bedden just said. Why don't we just leave it to administration and as close as we can get to the next meeting, enact it?
Madam President, the only reason I would say that, I would like an affirmation, because I do, again, because of the health and safety factor, affirm that there's no one comfortable that we are moving forward with something that they're uncomfortable with because of the health and well-being aspect. That was really my real reason for getting an affirmation at the board majority. Now, if there's someone who does not want to attend, then I just need to build into the plan how they will attend remotely. So that will be part of it. But I just wanted to make sure that after the fact, lessons learned, that someone is not, uncomfortable with it. And if they are, then I'll follow up with them and make sure I have a dialogue with them as we're developing a plan, if that makes sense.
Yes. Although, I just wanted to do the roll call to make sure, because I think that the community should be here doing it. I want to make sure everyone else is comfortable with it. So I don't want to try to put something forward that, the majority is not comfortable with. Ms. Robo?
Okay.
Thank
All right. Mrs. Brancato.
Yes.
Mr. Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Eilenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Goddickson.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Bergnick.
Yes.
Mrs. Crossan.
Yes.
8-0.
Would anyone like to pull anything?
Five 5.7B as a boy.
Anything else?
Could I just make a comment? I believe there's one that needs discussion first. Just see. 5.3, exceptions to policies, an item for discussion that should probably be handled totally separate. You can't read that in as a motion until you have a separate motion and discussion on 5.3. So I'd like to see that pulled off. It's on the sick leave. And there's a memo there with the 3 options. So we really can't roll that all into this.
It's not on the printed agenda. Yeah.
Somehow printed.
It would be on
Yeah,
the-
it should be, but
on the computer.
yeah, but either way, you need to, because of the conversation that happened with legal counsel. I believe that was that topic. So it just needs to be a motion to pull it altogether. To her point,
I'd like to pull 5.3.
Okay, thank you.
I think right now you just need to pull it, and we can bring it back.
Are you pulling it or tabling it?
Pulling it. Per request.
Did someone second it?
No, it's just, if it's just pulled, then we'll pull
Yeah,
it.
okay.
We'll deal with it later. It's not part of the consent agenda.
Okay. 5.1, minutes. Be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors approves the minutes from the December 7th, 2020 School Board Reorganization meeting. 5.1b, approves the minutes from the December 8th, 2020 work session, regular school board meeting. 5.2, personnel. Be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors, 5.2a, approve retirements. 5.2b, approve resignations. 5.2c, approve authorization to employ. 5.2d, approve leaves of absence. 5.2e, approves change of status. 5.2f, approves co-curricular addition. 5.4, appointments. Be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors, 5.4b, approves the retroactive appointment of Thomas Greenwood as Board Treasurer for the 2020-2021 school year at no additional compensation. 5.5 waivers, none. 5.6 conferences and travel, none. 5.7 bids and quotes. Be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors, 5.7a, approves the quote from Recreation Resource for new playground equipment at McDonald Elementary School. Total cost of replacement is $70,514.50 to be paid by insurance, less the deductible of $7,500, which will be paid by the 3 juvenile offenders. 5.8, assembly, speakers, and programs, none. 5.9, contracts, licenses, and services. Be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors, 5.9a, approves the standard contract for services with New Hope Academy for student 11-3 for 2020-21. 5.9b, approves the 3-year agreement for mainline commercial pools for a chlorine dispensing system for the pool at William Tennant High School. District cost not to exceed $11,498.16. 5.9c, approves the authorization for services with Barry Isett and Associates to perform an Asbestos Hazard Emergency Response Act 3-year asbestos reinspection. District cost not to exceed $6,200. 5.9d, approves the agreement with the Bucks County Intermediate Unit to support the financial oversight of the materials and services at Christ Home from the Title I Part A neglected carryover funds. No cost to the district. 5.9e, approves the purchase of the 3-year subscription for Frontline Education Systems. District cost not to exceed $101,393.11. 5.9f, approves the enrollment of Bryn Athens student 2-13 in accordance with Policy 607. Tuition income to attend Klinger Middle School. Bryn Athens Borough School District will pay tuition for the student and will provide transportation. 5.9g, approves retroactively the purchase of the license renewals for the World Language Spanish and French courses. District cost not to exceed $41,863.32. 5.11, acceptance of donations, grants, and requests, none. 5.12, changes to academic programs, positions, and stipends, none.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
It's up to you. You don't have to since everybody's in the room, but it's totally your decision.
I do have a question, though. In regards to the student from Bryn Athens, is this a full-year attendance, or is this a student that's just starting to come into the district?
It is a newly enrolled student. Okay,
That's all I need to know.
thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mary Alice? Mrs. Brancato?
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask this question, if you don't mind, Mr. Greenwood, probably your side. The part about McDonald Elementary School, that's customary that the insurance would pay first, correct? And then the parents would cover, the parents are covering the deductible, correct?
Mr. Greenwood, can you go to mic so the public can, or Mr. Warmus, whoever, someone needs to go to mic to make sure the public can hear you.
I think that was part of the question somebody was trying to ask, that's only getting on answer.
That is right, Ms. Brancato. So the three individuals are going to be divide $7,500. And the way it works from the court's perspective, Bucks County probationary courts, is they'll pay us and they'll back charge the three individuals. So we will get a check from Bucks County courts. But yes, it's only the deductible.
So can I just ask one more question? You can tell me it's none of my business. Is this already completed? The situation with the children?
The short answer is no.
Okay, thank you.
We need a vote. We need a
Yes, I'm
vote.
sorry, yes, you need to call for a vote.
Yeah.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays?
Madam Chair? Yes, because we pulled 5.3, I would recommend that someone make a motion to table it until the
So moved.
26 meeting.
Second.
Second.
To vote on the table.
Okay,
There's a motion to table, so we need a voice vote or roll call, whatever you want.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Ms. Robo.
You should have to read it. Go ahead and read it again.
Sorry about that. 5.4A approves the appointment of school board member Shelley Eilenberg to serve on the Bucks County Intermediate Unit Board of School Directors through June 30th, 2024.
Mrs. Brancato?
So
We need
my
a second.
question,
We need a second on that.
I'll
Second.
that. And I do have a question.
Mrs.
I would
Brancato?
like to make a motion to change that.
Change in
You have
motion?
to,
Yes. I would like to change it so that it only reflects 1 year for the year 2020-21.
I'll second that. I actually have a question about it.
Actually, I think my question will cover that. All right, my understanding through Pennsylvania Association of Intermediate Units is that the appointment is for 3 years by statute. And I believe that Ms. Eilenberg has certainly done a good job during her first year. So my question is, she should have been voted onto the board of Bucks County Intermediate Unit in her first year, and should still have 2 years left on that term.
Mr. Miller, that was part of, you read my mind, because my question was, this request came from the Bucks County Intermediate Unit to our school district. This wasn't something that was generated from here. So they require that the board vote on this. And if anyone has questions as to why I feel passionate about the Bucks County IU and why I'd like to serve, I'm happy to answer that question.
But don't we normally But again, procedurally, we usually get a ballot from Bucks County Intermediate Unit, and we vote on all of the members, not just our own member.
Wouldn't your term be up prior to this date of June 30th, 2024? I don't think you could appoint somebody beyond their term of office.
I think we have to look at what the Bucks County Intermediate Unit requires. If that's something that they require, I'd like to ask the question as to.
Now,
Does this need to be done tonight in terms of,
the General Assembly set the terms for the intermediate unit at 3 years. And the reason for that is so that you couldn't have a single year where conceivably the entire 13 school board directors on the executive board of the intermediate unit turn over. So doing it the way they do it with the 3-year term, there's always experienced members on the board of the intermediate unit.
Okay, so would it be reasonable to, since she had 1 year already, add 2 more years to this and then change this to?
I don't believe we have to do anything. I believe that Ms. Eilenberg's already been appointed for 3 years, and that we will get a ballot from Bucks County Intermediate Unit to vote on the new members that join the Executive Council this year.
Mr. Miller, if I understood Mrs. Eilenberg correctly, this item is on our agenda at the request of the IU. Is that correct, Mrs. Eilenberg?
That's true.
Could I just add, I believe that there was backup where the IU sent us a lengthy document and requested that the board appoint Mrs. Eilenberg, and at that point, they will put her name on the ballots, and then we will receive the ballots for the board to vote on the entire grouping.
That's the form of which I speak, but
Right,
I
correct.
don't believe that Ms. Eilenberg will even be on that particular ballot
Not until we
because she's
vote on
already
it.
appointed.
Correct, but they want us to do this at a public meeting. That was the
Right, we
request
would
that
own-
came.
Every school district votes on every new member, and they also
Right.
have the right to substitute a member if they want, but, I don't believe there's any reason we would want to do that.
Is the short version of this that it's pro forma and we have to do it to allow the IU to complete its process?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
can we
Thank
change this
you.
to 2023 to finish up a 3-year, and can we vote on it?
Well, we've got a motion and an amendment, so we have to deal with those two unless you want to make another amendment.
I will agree to the change as a second.
What?
Okay.
I did get a response from the IU. The attorney there believes that it is 3 years. She did say for our board secretary to follow up with theirs. And sometimes board members get elected to fill an unexpired term of another member, which would address the issue that if she's appointed and then she leaves or is not reelected, then someone would have to do her unexpired term. But that's her initial response, and then just suggested that Ms. Robalt follow up with.
Ms. Robo, will we vote on this, or how would we work that?
Okay, well, let me just clarify. We had a motion and an amendment to make it a 1-year term. Then there was another amendment to make it only a 2-year term. Is that what I understand?
Yes, and then
I
that would
don't
be
believe
the
Mr.
3 years,
Goldexen's
right?
Motion got a second, didn't it? No, Mr. Brancato did.
Mr. Goddickson made the amendment for the 1 year, was seconded by Mrs. Brancato. But I'm hearing that there was another amendment to make it to
Right, we
June
would
of
have to vote
2023.
on, Mr. Goldexen and Ms. Brancato's motion first because it was made first.
Okay, that's the First Amendment, but there's been a subsequent amendment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and who made that the second amendment?
I did.
You did, okay. And was there a second on that?
I don't believe there was.
No, there wasn't.
I think, if I may,
Yes.
I think this date is being dictated by the Bucks County IU, and I think that we need to, I don't know that they're accepting of us changing the date on them, so I think we need to ask that question.
Well, the email, I just found their email. Ms. Ollenberg's term expires on 6/30/2021. So it would be this year. Yeah. and- yes.
I was filling the last
There
portion
we
of
go.
someone else's appointment.
Yes.
So we want to vote on this as is.
Correct.
Ms. Robo.
That's fine.
Well, we have to,
Or
now we have
we
to
can
vote.
pull it.
We have to vote on the motion that's been seconded, correct?
Or pull it.
Well, I believe if the board would agree, we can abandon the amendments, or we could vote down the amendments and stick with the main motion, which was the original one, which leaves the date as June 30th, 2024.
May I ask a question, Madam President? And I don't know the answer to this, but I'm looking at the email, and maybe this is where y'all have done it, so I'm just asking a question. It actually says the IU board members are appointed by the presidents of each of the local district boards to serve on the IU board for a 3-year term. Each school board needs to ratify by majority vote the appointment of the IU representative through a motion voted on at a duly advertised public meeting, which is what we're doing. So the board president needs to confirm the vote by completing the attached IU board member nominating certificate. So when I read that, even though since she's not over yet, it does need to be 3 years. And then to that part that you were talking about, then her name would be on a certificate, I guess, a nominating certificate?
Well, no, that particular document that we pulled up that's available, Mrs. Crossan would sign that, and I would get that back to the IU because that's what they've requested.
So right now, we want to follow through with what they're requesting, the
Yes.
2024.
Correct.
So what is the next step, Ms. Robo?
Well, you could vote down the 2 amendments and go back to the original main motion. I think because the 2 amendments are out there on the floor and they're just kind of hanging out there.
Was the second amendment
But it
ever
doesn't
seconded?
change the
No.
fact that Ms. Eilenberg was originally appointed for 3 years last year, so
No,
But
she
I
wasn't.
wasn't. I took up the end of someone else's
Yeah. It
appointment.
looks like you did an
We were not
unexpired
voted
term,
on
is
it.
what I'm
I was
looking at
appointed.
here.
okay, so then
be
I
clear.
apologize.
The second
why the
amendment
request
was
for the
never
next 3.
seconded? So do we need,
I
so
do
if that
believe-
doesn't get a
Correct, it
second?
wasn't.
I do believe Mr. Dixon was the one that appointed her to that board, yes, last year. And since he's no longer president, it's now Patty Crowson. But it could be a different president next year.
Well, here's the interesting part of the language. I'm reading it now. If the current representative listed below will continue to serve for the next 3-year term, there is no need to do anything further other than to let them know that the
That's
member
right.
has been reappointed for another 3-year term. If a new board representative will be nominated, please complete and return the attached nominating certificate to whoever this person is. What does that sound like to you, Ms. Rohal?
Well, I would assume that the board secretary at the IU would want this form. They would need this signed by the board president, and generally the board president doesn't sign anything that we haven't voted on.
Okay. Then that's your local process then. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, again, so what is next?
So what we've done is, as Mr. Dixon pointed out, the second amendment was not seconded, so it dies for lack of a second.
Perfect.
So that's fine. So we have the amendment that Mr. Goddixon made to make it a 1-year term, that was seconded by Mrs. Brancato, that I would recommend we vote down by a simple voice vote.
Okay, can we get a vote on that?
I'd like discussion on that motion.
Okay.
Okay. The intent of the ballot that is provided by the intermediate unit for all districts to vote on all members is because the intermediate unit serves the entire county. okay, the correct term for a member of the executive board of the intermediate unit is 3 years. So for that reason, I will be voting no on the motion to limit it to 1 year, as I believe it is out of order.
Quick question. Must it be a school board member to serve on the board of the intermediate unit? That's a
Yes.
requirement?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so can we do a roll call? And this is to get rid of the 1 year?
Yes. Okay, we're doing a roll call on the amendment.
If you vote yes, you're supporting the amendment. If you vote no, you are voting against the amendment. That is correct, Ms. Robo?
Correct.
So confused, I don't know if we're up or down or sideways.
Right, we're voting against the amendment for 1 year because we realize that it is out of order. But because the motion and the second are on the floor, it has to be dealt with. So,
No, because we can't do 1 year term, is that what you're
yes, that's correct.
saying? Okay.
Yes. Okay, so the vote on the amendment will start with Mr. Dixon,
No.
Mrs. Eilenberg,
No.
Mr. Goddixon,
I will vote no in this case.
Mr. Martin,
No.
Mr. Miller,
No.
Mr. Bergnick,
No.
Mrs. Brancato, Mrs. Crossan.
No.
Okay, that fails. And then we need to vote on the main motion. And that can be voice vote or a roll call.
All in favor of 5.4A?
Aye.
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 I just want to point something out that has nothing to do with that. I don't know why, because I'm not a tech person, but these people are saying they were on the webinar, and it timed out after 2 hours and cut them off and wouldn't let them back in. Does that make sense? Like 5 people said.
And I think your mic's off.
Excuse me?
I think your mic's off.
Oh, I'm sorry. So these, listen, I'm just passing it along. These people are saying that the Zoom webinar timed out and they couldn't get back in. And they're asking if it was intentional. Listen, I'm
was not
telling you
intentional.
what they're saying. Then these are just community members. They're actually,
Is there a way we can correct that so they can get back on?
We could try.
Thank you.
so I don't know if we can correct it for today. I'm not and what I'm saying is, we need to find a way that these people can have a voice. I don't care if they have to write it in, I don't care what we have to do. We just need to make sure next time that, because these people feel like we just did this on purpose. And I know that we didn't. At least I didn't, you didn't. We're all sitting here. I'm not accusing anybody of doing it on purpose, but that's what the community thinks. And we can't have that. We can't have people thinking we did that on purpose.
Well, hopefully we just passed that hopefully we can have people, for the next meeting, if we get things done in time, we can have people come in.
Nate, is it possible to restart the Zoom session?
I also think they saw the part they wanted to see.
Is it possible to restart the Zoom session?
I can try.
Not necessarily right this
There was,
second.
from the beginning of the meeting, there was 3 people in the room.
Right.
One of them spoke. As soon as the first person spoke, the other 2 got out of the room.
Oh.
So it's not like we lost a
So
large
one
amount of
lady is
people
a
in the Zoom
police
meeting
officer,
itself.
the lady that was there and then was gone, and hers expired. So
All I'm asking is if we can reopen the Zoom, there's an additional community comments section at the end of the meeting.
I'm gonna send them your phone.
And let's make sure that won't
I don't wanna
interrupt the recording.
Right.
Be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors, 5.7B, awards the graduation rental equipment bid 2021-02 to Light Action Incorporated in the amount of $14,483 for the 2021 graduation ceremony.
Second. Yes, I did. I would like to know if The stage this year contemplates space for the Board of School Directors who wish to sit on the stage, as they did up until 2017, is included in this bid.
Dr. Best?
We might still be with COVID.
So presently, the answer to that is no. Our plan is to run multiple graduation ceremonies over the course of a day and run night of reflections outside in the stadium the previous evening because we're not confident we'll be able to do that in the auditorium because we don't know what the restrictions will be now. But we do know that we can run it outside. Our goal is to have as few people as possible on the stage to interact with the students as they walk across to receive their diplomas, and to make sure that all parents are able to hear parents or guardians are able to hear their child's name read as they cross the stage. We're not sure yet how many ceremonies that will be. It'll be at least 3. We're trying to keep it to 3, but there may need to be a 4th.
Any other questions?
I mean, chances are in June, we'll still have some kind of COVID restrictions.
Well, I sat on the stage for 10 years with my fellow board members. I think the time we put in deserves that small
I
accommodation.
know, but during COVID, we need the least amount of, this is crazy time, Mr. Miller.
I wouldn't have a problem if it was because of COVID.
Yeah,
But
it's all gonna be cleared up by August so I can go on vacation now.
it just seems to me, for the time that I've been on the board, year after year, the board's role in graduating the students that we graduate is diminished, and I resent it.
Well, Mr. Miller, I'm sorry that you resent it, but with COVID, the kids have to come first. Because
COVID
last year,
aside,
excuse me?
if we are still under COVID restrictions
Oh, come on,
in
we will
June,
be. This is already almost the end of January. That's June.
Okay, let's take a vote on this if we don't mind. And if we're not going to do a roll call, but all in favor of 5.7B?
Aye.
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 Was that a
No, ask for objections.
okay? Any objections?
Objection.
Okay, thank you.
7-1 with Mr. Miller opposed.
New business. Be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors 6.1 approves the, first of all, does anyone want to pull anything? New business? No? Okay, moving on. Approves the 2022-2026 tax collector compensation plan with annual increases of 10.5% of the 2021-2022 base year as per the attached.
Second.
6.2.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's 2 more. 6.2 approves the unpaid leave request for employee 12-1 from January 18th, 2021 through June 15th, 2021, contingent upon securing a qualified replacement substitute as per the attached. 6.3 approves the release and agreement in lieu of and in full satisfaction of a free appropriate public education FAPE for student 10.3 for the 2020-2021 school year pending graduation of the student.
Second. You need to ask for discussion first.
Any discussion?
Question, if I might, on 6.3, without going into, you can't probably go into detail. Is there a real good reason to do this? I mean, I don't, just the way it's worded and what it said we're going to be paying taxpayers' money to a private school, I kind of question why we should do that.
This is a in lieu of FAPE agreement, one that was on for executive session today. It was actually presented a few months ago paperwork wasn't finalized till now. So it is basically done already because it's for the current school year. And it is a cost savings. That's what I can tell you in a public forum.
Can you say how that's a cost saving? You're saving lawyers' fees, or what are we saving? You're paying money out, so how are we saving?
There's but so much I can say in a public forum.
Can't explain how it's a saving? I don't know why that would be restricted.
If you look at the attachment that's included in the board docs, if you look at the attachment, it's a breakdown of what it is for.
In general, Mr. Martin, if I may, I'm not speaking about this or any specific case, but in general, you'll find that these agreements are not recommended unless the cost-benefit analysis has been completed.
By Constitution, we're required to provide the the free and appropriate public education in least restrictive environments. Sometimes we cannot provide services that the student needs, and it would be more costly for us to provide the service in our district than to assign them to another school. Presently, Ms. Baldwin, how many students do we have presently assigned to outside institutions?
This is
approximately.
This is different. This is a in lieu of FAPE agreement.
Yeah, but
so in
but
lieu
still
of,
one we can't fulfill.
Yes, this is one that we cannot fulfill in lieu of our out of district placement numbers have decreased over the last few years. But yes, the numbers are really low.
Just for general knowledge, we have had catastrophic cases. Students that cost $250,000 a year to serve, and we pay that because that's required by the state constitution.
And I just want to, I apologize, I just want to say, Ms. Bolton did go into this in detail and explain the cost analysis at that executive session, and I apologize that it was a while ago, but...
It was months ago.
Yeah, but we were there, and we asked our questions at that time, and so hopefully that satisfies that.
It was
I'm not
on
sure.
for today too, so it was on today's agenda as well to review it for executive session.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No on 6.3, aye on the other two.
Okay, and nays, just one?
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Eilenberg?
7, policies. Policies presented for initial distribution discussion. 7.1A, policy 001, name and class, yes? Any others, please? Seeing none, moving forward. Just to repeat, 7.1A, policy 001, name and classification. 7.1B, policy 002, authority and powers. 7.1C, policy 005, organization. 7.1D, policy 011, board governance standards. 7.1E, policy 012, board policy development process. 7.1F, policy 111, lesson plans. 7.1G, policy 150, Title I comparability of services. 7.1H, policy 203, immunizations and communicable diseases. 7.1I, policy 209, health examinations and screenings. 7.1J, Policy 314, Physical Examination. 7.1K, Policy 610, Purchases subject to bid quotation. 7.1L, Policy 611, Purchases budgeted. 7.1M, Policy 612, Purchases not budgeted. 7.1N, Policy 613, Cooperative Purchases. 7.10, Policy 711, Concessions. And this is, we're not voting on these are just for distribution, initial distribution and discussion. This is our policy committee, admin policy committee, hard at work with Colleen Rochetta guiding us, and Dr. Bedden as well, updating our PSBA recommendations for a lot of our policies. 7.2, policies presented for adoption. Be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors adopts the following policies. 7.2A, you did pull that and I have it circled and I'm not reading it now. So, thank you, Mr. Mellon. 7.2B, Policy 103, Discrimination, Title IX, Sexual Harassment Affecting Students. 7.2C, Policy 247, Hazing. 7.2D, Policy 249, Bullying and Cyberbullying. 7.2E, Policy 252, Dating Violence. 7.2F, Policy 304, Employment of District Staff. 7.2G, Policy 317.1, or one educator, .1, Educator Misconduct. 7.2H, Policy 348, Discrimination, Title IX, Sexual Harassment Affecting Staff.
Second.
And then we have to go back to 7.2A.
Okay, all in favor?
Discussion.
Aye.
All right.
Any
Aye.
Any nays? All right.
Reading 7.2A, Policy 000, Board Policy Procedure Administrative Regulations. Mr. Miller.
Second. And, yeah, my concern here is that we kind of put the cart before the horse. Policy 000 as rewritten takes out the items that are in Policy 012 that we just received today for initial distribution. So by if we would table this for a month, then we could vote on this together with Policy 012.
Second.
The specific items are the Citizens Policy Committee and the Administrative Policy Committee are presently part of 000. When we approve this, they're gone, and if we don't replace them with Policy 012, which we got initially this evening, we wouldn't have a policy to hold.
Gotcha.
Citizen Policy Committee or
So,
Administrative Policy.
Mr. Dixon, you second it?
I second
All in favor?
the presumptive motion
Aye.
to table it.
Any
Yep.
nays?
Aye, if we're voting.
All in favor, you said aye. Any nays?
Be it resolved that the Centennial School District Board of School Directors approves the schedule of bills, investments, cafeteria fund budget reports, and general fund cash receipt summary, December 2020, as per the attached. That's 8.1. 8.2 approves the 2020 budget transfers for December, as per the attached. 8.3 approves the pending bills list, as per the attached. And finally, 8.4 approves the pre-approved paid bills list, as per the attached.
Second.
All in favor?
Discussion.
Aye.
You
Oh,
need to-
discussion, I'm so sorry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you. Board discussion and comments?
Madam Chairman, I'm going to be very brief because of the time, but just, and I'm not beating a dead horse here, but three comments briefly, going back to the infamous letter that we had discussed. Number one, I think we need to develop a process, if it's going to say from the school board, there has to be a process developed as to how that will happen so that it is from the school board. On non-routine letters. On routine letters, I don't think that's it. That nobody cares about that. It's when school starts. But on anything it could be of a something that could be controversial. I think there has to be a way to do that, to avoid that happening in the future. And I think it's the comments earlier tonight were fine. That they were most appreciated. And going forward, I'm sure we'll be a little more cautious about the wording. But finally, I think, and I heard, I think her name was Mrs. Griffin, suggested it might be a good thing to put out a letter, since many people, had great difficulty in comprehending what happened this evening because of all the difficulties, just clarifying without going into just a simple letter, 2 or 3 paragraphs, assuming that the board would agree, just clarifying and kind of restating what you all and Dr. Bedden said earlier in the meeting to go to the same people that got the original letter. I think that would be very helpful, and if that has to be a motion, I would make it, but that would be my suggestion as to how to hopefully close out that issue.
That'll be from the whole board, right?
If everyone agree, I would think that would be something that, based on earlier comments this evening that were made, that should be helpful.
We didn't make a motion for the first letter, just.
No, I'm not necessarily calling a clarification letter. I would call it rather than an apology letter. But in that clarification letter could be what was stated publicly at the beginning of the meeting. Many people probably didn't even hear it because of all the calamity.
I don't want my name on that letter, because I don't know whoever's gonna write it, I don't know what they're gonna write. So if I wanna say I'm sorry, I can do it for myself, I don't need you to do it. I'm sorry that this situation happened. But yes, I do think that that you guys need to put that in, that I'm sorry, out the same way you put that information. They can't, that's up to Mr. Marcus, he wants to be. I just don't want it to be from the board, because I'm not gonna, you're gonna send it without me reading it. I don't wanna do that again.
I do think it's important for the community to understand that this initial letter was not from the entire board.
But they don't know who it was from. They don't know who it was from. They assumed it was from all of us. We've already gone through that. It's not from all of us. But yes, they need to, whatever.
Are we doing this as a motion because we were having discussion and we have a motion but no second?
Do we really need a motion, and do we need to vote on something, or is it just
We
something
don't.
that
We don't.
the board leadership can decide amongst themselves?
I do think it's a good idea. It doesn't have to be decided on tonight as to how we're going to do it. Or should I get everyone's opinion? I don't want to make a decision for other people.
I think if you guys want to draft something and then just, take your time and make sure everybody has a chance to see it.
Okay. Dr. Bedden? You think that's okay?
I don't know that we, whatever. I don't know that we all need to say, we can be sorry about the situation, but not, I can't apologize for something you said. It doesn't make it, I can say I'm sorry, Pat, you did that a million times,
Well, I think it's nice that the community sees us as one voice.
But we're not one voice, Mr. Miller.
That's it, you have your opinion,
You're right.
I have
We
mine.
all do. Not just me. Everybody has their own opinion. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm sorry.
All right, so we're going to move on. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Dixon.
I would like to, just say that with respect to the issue that Mrs. Crossan and Dr. Bedden addressed at the opening of the meeting, the letter that they're referring to, I first of all, I don't want to leave them twisting in the wind, because although I was not involved in the composition of the letter, I didn't know anything about the letter till I saw it. But I read it, and I said, looks good to me, without necessarily, I looked at it quickly. And, sometimes this is why I think that it's good to have every set of eyes go over it, because it didn't necessarily leap off the page to me the way that, on reflection, certainly it could have been taken. And so for the fact that for some folks who were offended by it, I would add my apology. I'm taking responsibility for my role in that I saw it. I didn't process it that way. And I would further add just a few things. I don't think, normally I wouldn't attempt to speak for everybody up here, but I think it's fair to say that everybody around this table is very supportive of our law enforcement, both locally in Warminster Township and Upper Southampton Township and Ivyland, and more generally. We live in a society of laws, and therefore honest and engaged and hardworking law enforcement officials at every level of law enforcement are worth their weight in gold, because without the laws, we do not have a functioning society. With that said, what happened at the Capitol was an attack on that concept, and that's why the letter, on the whole notion of a rule of law, and that's why the letter went out. And I would say that I know some parents were upset, in terms of it perhaps looking that we're taking a political position, but there's a position just in general. The United States and every functioning democracy, if it works by the rule of law. That was an attempt to undermine the rule of law. And when children are watching, which our children are, who do they look to? Certainly they look to their parents and their guardians first, obviously. But we're school teachers.
Right, and we did.
And we're a school community.
So I did address that. I didn't write it, but I did read it, and I didn't. Like you said, it didn't jump out at me like that. But now that the community, the more eyes that would have seen it, it would have been better. And I do apologize if it offended anybody.
Sure.
And I don't have a problem with sending something out that says that to the community if it would make things a little bit better. But I do want to.
Who is that?
Right.
Yeah, Mike Peduto.
Oh, there we go. Are we at
Well, I wasn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I wanted to say a couple of things, because I know that the thing that really set folks off about the letter is, was the paragraph with respect to the performance, or comparing different responses to different things that happen with law enforcement. I just want to say that the reason that it didn't leap off the page to me initially, and although I do understand why some people looking at it a second time, and that's why. So I also stand with Dr. Bedden and Mrs. Crossan for, stating that we're sorry the wording could have been better. I've got friends who are in law enforcement. I love our law enforcement officers, they're watching, and we need to show them respect, and I do show them respect. And we also have children in our district who are children of law enforcement, and we have to think about that. But we also have many children in this district who are people of color, and they're watching too. And that is what that letter was about. They see the disparity that at times happens, and I don't think it's coming from an individual law enforcement officers are like law enforcement officers anywhere, or workers anywhere. They have bosses, they got things they got to do, they're deployed, they're not deployed. But law enforcement is a tool. It's a tool. And how it is deployed and how it is used is a decision that's made by people who have power. And people who make this, excuse me. I'm talking to, I expressed my support for the letter. I apologize for its wording, but I want to say some reason why it also went out. Thank you. The law enforcement is a tool. And that's fine.
It's not fine.
Mrs. Brancato, I have the floor. Thank you. I have the floor. Thank you.
Who said you had a monologue, dude? We're trying to get done. You want every single person to express their political opinions like you're doing now? Okay, all right.
Hey, let's just take a minute.
I'm going to continue whenever she's finished.
Just give it a minute. Can you wrap it up in a minute, please?
Yeah, I will wrap it up
Thank
quickly.
you.
What I'm saying is that we have a lot of students and people of color in our district, and they watch too, and they see too. And that's what that letter was about. And that's important. We had a lovely speech about equity here that everybody stood up, applauded. But it's nice to talk about equity, you also got to do it. And part of doing it is not being quiet when you see it. The president-elect,
You're just putting down every single
No, I'm not.
in our district.
No, I'm not.
These people go out of their way to be
Okay,
equitable.
no, let's just take it a minute. Andrew, are you?
I'm talking about why we had to put that letter out. Why I mean, I said we didn't have to, but why I voted for it. And all I'm saying to finish up, wrap up, is that there is something that there's a difference in response that happens, and it's not because of the officers involved, it's because of the people making the orders and delivering the orders. What happened in Washington on Wednesday was unacceptable. Everybody knows it. An officer was killed, for heaven's sake. Why weren't they there, though? That has a big question. Why wasn't there more people there when they were there for other types of incidents? That has a lot to do with who's in power and who's making those calls. And we as a district that are committed to equity, I think are within our rights to say, you know what, to the students who are students of and people of color in our district, we see it too, and you have a safe space here to know that the adults in your life see it, and we're not just going to be quiet about it.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, so we're going to be moving on to 10.1 District's Policy Report. Are there any? Okay, so there are none. 10.2 Bucks County School Intermediate Unit, Mrs. Eilenberg.
We actually have a meeting next week, so I will be following up with a report after I get that update. Thank you.
PSBA Representative, Mr. Panofsky's not here. Mr. Miller, do you have anything?
I do. There is equity work being done at PSBA, and most importantly, we have our Advocacy Day this year, second year in a row being virtual due to the pandemic. It is on March 22nd, and if any board member can afford the time, it would be great to have you participate in one of the scheduled virtual discussions with our legislators that represent the district. I would also point out that Rep. Megan Schroeder has been reappointed to the House Education Committee, and we certainly want to let her know that we appreciate her being such a good advocate.
Mr. Miller, do you know the time on March 22nd?
I'll circulate the registration link to the board.
Thank you. And
I believe I believe it's from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m.
Okay, great. And Legislative Council, will also you?
Sure. Remember everything I said about the PSBA.
Okay. All right, so Middle Bucks Institute Technology Council Liaison, Mr. Goddixson.
I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. We had our reorganization meeting yesterday, and we have the same slate of officers as last year, with John Gamble being the chairperson from Central Bucks, and Montu Patel, the vice chair from New Hope Soulbury. Two of the staff members at NBIT also completed their administrative leadership program at Temple. We did have a parent, as I mentioned earlier, that spoke, and she was really speaking in regards to Council Rock potentially going back to a 5-day schedule starting on February 1st, which could trigger, some issues with our health and safety plan, and also the desire for those students from Council Rock to come back on a full-time basis, and a whole different slate of issues, because we are 4 districts that send students to MBIT, and historically, one district has oh, sorry, is that the business manager and the technology manager have put in for their retirement at the end of the school year. That would be a great loss to MBIT. That's it. I did mention that.
Thank you. Any questions? Additional, for communications, anybody have any? All right, additional community comments?
Additional community comments. We did post a graphic on the live stream. There are people on the line. However, the protocol is that they're supposed to write an email beforehand to be able to speak through community comments. So that is not up to me.
You can let them speak, the 3-minute.
Dean, if you can hear me in the back, they want to let the community comment through. They have 3 minutes.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, this is Mike Spadutto.
All right, Mr. Spadillo, can you just state your address? And then you have 3 minutes to speak. And if you can turn down your feed, we can hear an echo through. Mr. Spadutto, can you hear me? Hello? No, it's him.
We can hear us on the phone.
We can hear him.
Mike, can you say something?
No, it's our phone system.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Mike, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah, okay, well, you know, it went, put me on hold twice since I've been on here. I'd just like to make the comment, first of all, Mr. Dixon, I understand what you were trying to say there, but it holds no validity to the context of the letter. Okay, maybe you did read it, but I think you read it on a one-sided book. The community, okay, and I'm not making this up. I did get an email sent to me insinuating that I was not authorized to speak for the community. Well, believe me when I tell you, I am. And when we have a meeting in person, I will be there with the people who authorized me to speak for them. The letter that went out, my question is, why did it go out? Why did we need to send a letter? Why was it necessary? Why did we have to comment on a national event like that when we never said a word about the burning down of cities, the destruction of property, the disrespected law enforcement, and the burning down of people's businesses and people's own neighborhoods? We never felt any need to address that. But we sure did have to get our 2 cents in to say how law enforcement failed. And they're double-sided. If that didn't have undertones of racial insinuation, then I don't know what I'm talking about. As my letter stated to the board, the two groups, BLM and Antifa, have a history of violence and destruction. The MAGA group did not. And as I said in my letter, that it was bad planning on the side of the DC mayor and law enforcement. So I hope that you realize that you had the community by penning that letter and rubber stamping it with all the boards. Not only did you tarnish the board's name, but you tarnish the name of everyone who sits on that board. And you need to clarify who signed off on it and who did not. Because come election time, we'll vote.
That's 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Are there any other additional community
For
comments?
the
Anyone online?
record, for Mr. Sperduto, although I did not compose the letter, I most certainly did sign off on it. And I do acknowledge that the wording of the fourth paragraph, like I said, didn't catch it myself, but I recognize your point. And frankly, one of the positive things that came out of all of this, I thought, both here and even nationally, was, looking at the emails that we received. Dr. Bedden, because of all of this, had the opportunity to speak to a lot of community members by telephone. And honestly, talking to each other like people in those kinds of connective moments are often more, as Mrs. Brancato was saying earlier, not during the meeting, but people can be, keyboard commandos. We all know that. It's easy to get, for all of us, myself included, to be on your Facebook page where all your friends agree with you and saying blah, blah, blah. It's when you have to talk to each other that helps. And this forced a conversation. That is good. And I think that's a productive conversation. I think there were things about the process that have been acknowledged that could be better, and I think they will be in the future. But the bottom line, as I said, I still stand by the notion that the choice to use, I'm not talking about individual officers. Individual officers are individual people. 99, whatever, however high a percentage of them, like most people, are dedicated people doing their jobs. An officer was killed trying to do his job. It was absurd, insane, terrible, and a terrible tragedy for his family that happened.
Thank you.
But there's still the question of the choice to use the instrument and who holds that choice and when it is deployed. And the children in our community, children watch adults, see how they behave, and then ask questions. And they ask their parents, and they ask their teachers. And so, yes, that's why I think at times a school district, the people who represent the teachers, and when I say the teacher, I mean the entire educational community, we have a duty to say something to the students about an issue of this important, one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any more comments? No? Okay. Schedule of board meetings, calendar events. That's going to be Monday, January 18th. All schools and offices closed. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Tuesday, January 19th, 7 p.m. BCIU board meeting. Location is BCIU. Tuesday, January 26th, 7 p.m. Centennial School Board Committee of the Whole meeting, boardroom. Friday, January 29th, all schools closed, in-service day. Monday, February 8th, 2-hour delay in service. Monday, February 8th, 5:30 p.m. MBIT Executive Council meeting. Location MBIT. Tuesday, February 9th, 7 p.m. Centennial School Board meeting, regular meeting, boardroom. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.